Man may lie, your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife might lie, but spirit don't effing lie or miss, okay? For the last 6 months, I have had this message from spirit continually downloading into my brain, and that is to just be. The ability to hoard all these divinatory tools and going through the motions of all these practices in many ways, not all, but in a lot of ways, is not the flex that we think it is. And spirit started telling me about the process of just being and really trying to get me to harness that energy and integrate it fully in my spirit and 3D self, physical body, right around the time when I first found Natalie online and began her shadow work course. And it was just not a it was just one of those synchronized moments where it's so obvious what spirit is telling you, whether visually, auditorily, and for me it came auditorily that time. I can't talk today either with the gummy, y'all, sorry. And so I was doing shadow work one part of the course one day, and that's what I heard. I just kept hearing, just be, just be, just be. And basically, that is the point of not forcing things, letting things flow to you, not chasing downloads, not chasing messages from divine consciousness and our spirit bodies, and just letting the ish flow. And not one of, but some of my most profound messages from the astral spirit world and downloads and upgrades, mediumship messages have been when I wasn't even expecting it. And it's so funny because this moment is like full circle to me because when I first began my awakening, my really great awakening was when I was still a minister. So, like to hear a story, here it go. About a month or two after I officially became ordained as a minister in the Christian faith, my former pastor was speaking at another church somewhere in like close to DC, but not in DC, so like PG County somewhere. And I was getting ready to turn 27 that fall. So this is in the summertime. And this is also the same year, later that year, that Omar Sr. and I became married. And it was just so funny how things transpire, but we'll get into it. I'm trying to stay in topic, y'all. Sorry, the gummy is kicked in. When we were at this other church and our pastor was speaking to the congregation. And so while we are in the service, while my pastor is speaking, I received a download, and that message was just be. The same effing message that I'm having now, almost 15 years later, because this would have been the summer of 2010. 15 years later, I'm getting the same message again for where I am in my spiritual self, in 3D self, and how I have evolved since then. So this moment looked like, let me paint you a picture. We're all sitting in one section. We have on traditional ministerial clothing, which is a robe and the clergy neck brace. And so he's sitting there preaching, and that drops in my spirit, just be, just be. And I began to feel hot in my body physically, and I began to get a little dizzy. And I remember like putting my head down a little bit. And one of the other ministers, she was an elder, she was like, "Girl, you all right?" And I was like, my collar is choking me. And I just remember this feeling of being restricted and limited in that robe, in that collar that signifies my oath and promise to Christ and God and my commitment to the church that I was a part of as a minister. It's just so funny to me that I'm back in this space. And when the elder said something to me, I was like, girl, this collar is getting on my nerves. It's choking me. I feel restricted. I don't like the way it feels. And this was not the first time I had to wear my collar, y'all. Okay. So this was not something new. And she's like, girl, that's your yoke. That's your yoke. And that was a really common term because you see it in the Bible, being equally yoked when you're looking for a marital partner and intentionally looking to get married. And she was like, girl, she made a joke of it. Girl, that's your yoke. That's your yoke. And it was like this energy of that's your cross to bear as a spiritual leader now. That pain, that uncomfortableness, that restrictiveness, basically, girl, get used to it. This is your life now. And something about that just did not sit right with me. And it was less than 4 months later that I wrote a letter of resignation to my former pastor. And I was out of there. The sequence of events that happened after, it just began to compound and compound and compound on that moment. And I just had this deep innate sense and feeling in my energy that I needed to be set the F free. I don't think y'all understand, and perhaps you do, and I won't assume, okay? That feeling where you are so restricted in your outer world that it's almost leaving you speechless because you are so confined and you feel like you are so closely caged in that you barely even want to communicate verbally and be around anybody. And I just began to see things with my mind's eye that I didn't know that I was actually doing back then, but I now know that I am doing that, right? And it was, again, just this compounded feeling and energy and knowing that this was not it. This is not where I felt my spirit was leading and guiding me. It was like a moment in an event and events that was trying to ignite and reawaken very specific neural pathways and energetic frequencies that were lost because of indoctrination and conditioning in organized religion, patriarchal structures, etc. And I'll never forget that. And so to be right back in that same position many years later with broader perspectives, broader knowing, more love of self, more love for the collective, and wanting to reach people who are like me and who believe in a lot of the same spiritual practices and beliefs that I have. And I remember after resigning, having the conversation with my former pastor when he called me after he read the letter, and just having this, as soon as I put the letter in the mail, a weight lifted off of me that I cannot even begin to describe. I can't even effing talk. That moment was so freeing and liberating. And the more that I stayed in it, the easier it became to just integrate and let it flow in just the FB. Because my real deep dives and research didn't start till probably a year later, as far as deconstructing all these fake ass controlling ideologies and structures that I grew up in: patriarchy, religion, etc. Being a Black woman, being Black, all these cages of identity, as my spiritual mentor has taught me, cages of identity that we think make us who we are. And I have always loved the insect of a butterfly and the process that it goes to become this beautiful, magnificent, majestic being. And so when I resigned, that is how I felt. I felt like I was coming out of the cocoon stage into the stage of fullness of self. And I haven't looked back since, y'all. And of course, during the deconstruction journey, there's moments where you feel like you may not be making the right decision. There's moments where you might want to run back to Christianity because it was always this crutch that you were able to rely on for external power and knowing and understanding. and then having to learn to trust yourself and to trust your inner knowing and to trust what has already been placed in you. And it tells you in the Bible and many other religious texts that the divine God, Jesus, whoever, Holy Spirit, knew you before you were already in your mother's womb. They tell us. See, they give us the little small bits of truth and nuggets, and then they wrap the rest of that shit up in a whole bunch of patriarchal, misogynistic, sexist, and power hungry packages. They show you very, very subtly, but we glance over those things. The divine already knew us because we are spirit first, and we never truly really die. We just go on to take on a different form. And maybe for some of us, this will be our last reincarnation. Maybe we've done enough of the work. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting sidetracked again, y'all. Forgive me. But it's just learning to just be is not going to look the same for everyone. And at times, I love being online and having these online spaces to discuss these things. But then it's also a negative side to that because you have people out here teaching, selling courses, and making you believe that there's all these steps to get to the point of just being. That's what this ish really is about. So that's why I said at the beginning that having all these divinatory tools, spell work, crystals, more books than we'll ever be able to read in our entire lifetime is not the flex that we think it is. Because the whole point of this spiritual enlightenment and awakening is to just be. And we reach one another and we speak to one another and we share our truths with one another by just effing being. It's not the crystal that gives us the power. It's not the tarot cards that give us the message. It is self tapping into the energy, the flow of our spirit selves. Those things that we use as divinatory tools are great and fantastic, especially in the beginning. So I'm not going to negate its importance. The point of it all is to just become, to be you, to remember you. And when you remember who you are, you can better navigate your spiritual awareness and your 3D everyday life awareness so that we can make better decisions, be able to discern and intuitively pick up on the things that serve our highest and best good. That's it. To be, just be. How can we say that we believe that we are gods, yet we use all of these external tools and practices to so-called channel and harness our energy more? We don't have to do nothing more than just close our eyes and turn our eyes inward to feel more connected to source, to feel more connected to our spirit selves so that it can manifest the fruitfulness in 3D life. Because you are the God. You are the goddess. Then it further frees you from the pressure of having to show up a specific way that some guru online or some psychic medium online told you what is best for you. Nobody could define what's best for you other than yourself, other than the God in you. What do we know about clearing out our traumas through shadow work and dealing with the suppressed parts of our subconscious and pain? It makes room for us to harness more of who we are. It's not that spirit is waiting for you to clear out these traumas so it can impart all this divine consciousness in you. No. When you do the healing work internally to heal from the traumas of this 3D life, and some of us have been to hell and back, everything that you need is already in you. And so when we clear these traumas, it allows for the cells in our bodies and the neurons and the electrical magnification of our physical and 3D selves to be seen more, to be integrated more deeply. It's just making room for that to come out more. for us to expand our awareness and consciousness about who we are and stop chasing this idea that we need to always be looking for the signs and the wonders and the downloads and the spiritual upgrades and all that stuff. Just be, y'all. Like I told you at the top of the episode, there are times and there have been times where some of my most profound messaging is when I am just being. I may just be journaling and something comes to my spirit. I may just be washing the dishes and loading the dishwasher, cleaning the house, folding laundry, just being is all that I need to be in order to be my highest best self. But you definitely got to do the shadow work and deal, heal, and get through the energy and the feelings that uprise from your pains and traumas, because those things remain blockages in us. And that is why a lot of people have difficulty tapping into their divine conscious and divine energy. And it's because they have these things that need to be dealt with. They're like not even black holes, but they're like bricks and rocks in our spiritual body. And energy needs to be able to flow. Energy needs to be able to move freely. Freely. This is what it's about, just being so that things can come to you freely. Spirit has been on my ass about just being all freaking year and part of the end of last year. The whole point of this spiritual shit and ascension is to just fucking be. Let me know how you guys feel about it. Write to me at spiritualbaypod@gmail.com. Drop some comments if you're watching on the Tizoob at Spiritual Bay TV. Let me know how you feel about it. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, y'all, it's been your fave Spiritual Bay. Be safe and stay spiritually sucker free.